Goodwill Industries of Greater Nebraska. Our organization was created in 1968, and we currently serve 55 counties from Columbus all the way out to Scotts Bluff and the Colorado-Wyoming border. We have about 230 employees altogether, and question is, as far as the retail stores and where the donations come in, most people are familiar with the retail stores and that side of things. Our Goodwill happens to encompass a lot more than that. About half of what we do is what we call mission services. We have 3 different divisions within mission services, and that's where we provide services for people. And we last year provided about 2,000 individuals our services. So some of the things we offer at Goodwill, we serve the developmentally disabled in a day services program and also out in the community. We also, where I happen to be, is within the behavioral health services. We assist people who have some mental health needs as well as some substance use issues. And then we also have an employment and career services. We help people acquire employment and then keep employment as well. So where the donations and the retail stores come in, our mission services side of things, where we offer people assistance financially, we aren't able to stay afloat. So when the retail stores sell the donations that have generously been given, some of the revenue the retail stores bring over to mission services and kind of sprinkle upon us to keep us afloat. So that's where the donations really come in quite handy as far as assisting us with our mission and providing services for people. So thank you very much for your donations. One of my favorite quotes is from Gandhi. He talks about the best way to find yourself is lose yourself in the service of others. I've been very fortunate to have worked in the human services field, kind of the helping profession, for 19 years now, and the position I have with Goodwill allows me to do that as well. Our services really became most significant in the early 2000s. That's when the state of Nebraska chose to start moving away from using the regional centers, the closest regional center being in Hastings. And they wanted to provide more what they call community-based services. So in the past, say if a person maybe was living in their own apartment here in Grand Island and had a part-time job and had friends and family, natural supports in Grand Island, in the past when the regional centers were up and going, if that person, for example, had some struggles with depression and started having some suicidal thoughts, what would have happened in the past is that person would have been, the police would have went there, they would have transported that person to the regional center, and they would have been there a certain amount of time, whether it be weeks or months, depending on needs. So what would have happened in the weeks or months that that person would have been in the regional center is they would have lost their apartment, they would have lost their job, their friends and family and supports would have had pretty limited contact with them unless they drove to Hastings. So it was when the person got done at the regional center, they were really coming out to nothing. They had to start all over. What the community-based services that they decided to move towards, that's where we came into play, as well as many other providers. So they wanted to keep the person in the community and wrap services around them so they wouldn't need to be relocated and transplanted and kind of warehoused in places like the regional center. So we offer at our Goodwill what we call day services. We have about 30 to 35 people come in per day, and we serve them breakfast and a snack and lunch, and have a variety of different groups throughout the day to help educate them about their mental wellness and how to stay safe and healthy and stabilized within our community. We also offer community work. That's where we go out in the community and work one-on-one with individuals as far as skill building and resource acquisition and those type of things. So the thought is if we can provide services like that and keep people in their apartment with their job, with their family, everybody's going to be much better off. So we're blessed to be able to have the opportunity to do that. Unfortunately, what became the developmental disability community is also moving in that direction. They used to have large group homes with lots of developmental disability folks living there. Now what they're moving towards is having them move into households with families and really become a part of that family as opposed to the big group home setting. So much better results. Unfortunately, what became pretty apparent in the community when the regional centers started closing down and some of the group homes started closing down, as there were a fair amount of people that really struggled as far as having some stereotypes and stigmas and prejudices and some judgmentalism towards what it meant to have a mental illness such as schizophrenia, or what it meant to have an addiction problem. And that really created a lot of obstacles and barriers and harm for the individuals we serve as well as others. So really what we're trying to do at Goodwill Day Services is have our folks be able to come into a safe and healthy and therapeutic atmosphere where they're joined by others with similar struggles. It's always a relief to know you're not alone and other people have similar struggles as well, so they can come together and support each other and be of service to each other, as well as the service that the staff there is able to provide. So I wanted to share just kind of a brief story as far as creating that safe environment for our folks, away from the judgmentalism, the stereotypes, and those type of things. So we had an individual start services here a few months ago, and he had some balance issues, mobility issues. He used a cane, and very first day he was in services, he was walking down outside and unfortunately found a small piece of ice and it slipped and fallen back into the building, and he did what I would have done, instantly looked around to see if anybody saw him fall down, and hoping no one saw, and he looked over, and a couple of other clients we serve were down a little ways and saw him fall, and I visited with him later on that day as part of the incident report to find out, if he's okay and what happened. And he said, normally what would have happened in the past when he fell down is people would have looked at him, they would have pointed fingers at him, would have laughed at him, made fun of him. This particular time when he fell down, these two fellow clients came over and asked if he was okay and helped him up to his feet and sincerely wanted to know that he was okay, and continued to check on him throughout the day to make sure he was okay. And he's a little bit taken back by their sincerity, much different response than what he'd had in the past. And I was really blessed to be able to hear that story and know that that's the type of support we have going on amongst our clients. And then about a week later, we had a gentleman come in from Columbus, Nebraska, and he was struggling with some substance use issues and very malnourished and just kind of generally looking unwell and unhealthy. And he was going up to the lunch line, and this gentleman that had fallen a week earlier was in the cafeteria, and when this gentleman from Columbus went through the lunch line, we just ran out of cornbread, I later found out, and they told this gentleman who was malnourished, I'm sorry, we just ran out of cornbread. And he said, that's not a big deal. Well, this gentleman that had fallen a week earlier had observed this and heard this, and he very discreetly got up, grabbed his cornbread, went over, sat it down on this gentleman's plate, went and sat back down. Some staff members shared this with me later. And why that's kind of a particular significance to me, I had a mentor that talked about he wasn't much of a carpenter, and he kind of envisioned being up on a roof and hammering on some shingles, and if he would have missed the nail and hit his thumb, he would have been thinking about one person and one person only at that exact moment in time, and that would have been himself, because he was in so much pain with his thumb he couldn't think of anybody else. The fact that this gentleman that had fallen a week earlier, despite facing lots of barriers and obstacles, personally was able to look outside of himself, appreciate another and recognize another person struggling, not only recognize it, but take the effort and take the time and energy to do something about that, go over, set the piece of bread in front of them. That's not easy to do when you're consumed with self because of all the barriers you have going on. So it was really a wonderful display of caring about his fellow man, despite all the obstacles and struggles he had going on himself. So that's, for me, that's payday to see our clients support each other. It's one thing as a paid staff member, but to watch the support that clients give each other is really, for me, just such a tremendous blessing. So in the spirit of helping be more aware and less judgmental of all of the struggles people are going on with now, things have continued to improve, but there's certainly still some areas where we can all help grow. So I think one of the things that allows our clients to be less judgmental of others is the fact they've had their own struggles, and having their own struggles, they appreciate and recognize other people having struggles. I've met some kind of self-made people along the way that maybe had a whole lot of struggles themselves, and they can look down their nose at some of the individuals we serve and be very judgmental. It's very sad to me, because having worked with the folks I've worked with for the last 19 years, they are some of the most resilient people I've ever met. They have the ability to bounce back despite being dealt some really difficult cards, and they are true survivors, and their journey is meant to be very much appreciated as far as the struggles they've gone through and continue to go through. So I appreciate having the opportunity to speak, and I appreciate the workshop coming up as well, where myself and Chase can go into some more details about what Goodwill does. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Aaron.
You're very welcome.
As an inclusive congregation that